Hi, welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Jennifer Zielinski. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you're having a great summer. Tonight with us is friend of the show, Senator Eric Lucero. Eric, welcome back to the show. How have you been doing?
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to join you and your great audience and discuss the issues that are important to Minnesotans. And summer's been going great. It's going a little bit too fast. I was talking to somebody recently, and at least from the time we're airing this, I think the state fair is about 5 weeks away.
I think you're right on that.
And the state fair is the unofficial end of summer, so that's not necessarily a positive thing. But other than that, summer's been great.
Great, and you're probably busy with parades, festivals, local fairs, right?
Absolutely. I've got, I have my particular Senate district. It spans 4 counties. One of those counties is Hennepin County, so I won't be going to the Hennepin County Fair, but I will be going to the Wright County Fair, the Sherburne County Fair, and the Anoka County Fair.
Oh, wow.
And then, yes, there are parades. I have some festivals. There's chicken dinners, pancake breakfasts, and ice cream socials. And so, yeah, it's definitely very busy. It's very fun interacting with the great people of Minnesota.
Wonderful. And just to give our audience just a recap, you weren't a senator prior to this year. Where did you start out in your political career?
Yeah, so I was in the Minnesota House of Representatives for 8 years. I served 4 terms there. The area that I live in St. Michael, so Albertville, St. Michael, Otsego area was my House district. Now, as a senator, I'm in my first term, serving my first year, so I'm in my 9th year in the legislature.
Okay.
The Senate district is obviously twice as big as a House district, so it includes, it didn't change very much, to be honest, in redistricting for our area. So Albertville, St. Michael, Hanover, Rockford Township, Otsego, Elk River, now then, and the western portion of Oak Grove is the Senate district.
Great. And I mean, just a busy summer, but unfortunately we do have some bad news that really does affect your district as well. It happened up in North Dakota. It's news as
Yes.
this show is taping tonight. But we lost a police officer up in North Dakota, but he has ties to your district, correct?
Absolutely. It's a tragedy. A young man, officer up in the North Dakota area, Fargo, and he lost his life. He had only been an officer for a few months, is my understanding, but he is from St. Michael, Albertville area. He's a STMA graduate. He was very well liked. In fact, there is a lot of people in our community talking about it. Obviously, it's just devastating. Devastating to the family, devastating to the community, and it is another one of those examples where you have somebody willing to give their life in service to the state, the country, sacrifice to others to protect them. And unfortunately, this young man was very young, 23 years old.
Officer Jacob Wallin.
Yeah, yes.
And he not only was a police officer, he served in the Minnesota National Guard. Just somebody who was about service to his country and service to his community.
Yes, very motivated, very excited to serve in that capacity. And then to join the ranks of law enforcement and continuing that sacrificial service to the community, giving his heart, giving to make improvements, to keep the peace. And unfortunately, you see these attacks on law enforcement, and that's the first thing that comes to mind, is when we see these law enforcement officers who are tragically losing their life. And one cannot help but think the dangerous rhetoric that continues to be promoted by extremists, unfortunately, who absolutely hate law enforcement. Every time there is an incident, it is the law enforcement officers' fault in the minds of these people. And they will use any interaction with law enforcement as an excuse to spew their vile hatred towards law enforcement. And that kind of rhetoric gets translated into others that are listening to this, and they act upon it, and it emboldens criminals to the degree where they're willing to murder police officers. And that is so tragic.
In daylight. I mean, it happened in the middle of the afternoon, early evening, and it's in an area we don't expect it. I don't ever want to see a law enforcement officer lose their life anywhere, but unfortunately this is, the norm in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities, but it's carrying out to the suburbs and now to states where we don't expect it to happen.
Yes. Well, this dangerous rhetoric, it's being communicated in media. It's being communicated, whether it be newspaper, online, television stations, and this dangerous rhetoric is being seen by others. And this hatred towards law enforcement, unfortunately, again, it emboldens people in areas that are even outside, obviously, the Twin Cities urban areas, where we have seen the skyrocketing crime. But that skyrocketing crime is traveling to other areas. And it's very dangerous. And that's why we need to continue to make sure that we support our law enforcement officers, because these professional men and women are risking their lives each and every day to protect ours. And we need to support them. We need to give them the honor and the respect that they deserve. And we need to work as hard as we can to tap down those voices that seek to make it an even more dangerous profession for our law enforcement officers.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, we're seeing the Democrats in the state, not only with crime, but just, I've been calling them the runaway Democrats. This last session, you were a fighter. You're the fighter in there in the ring. What did you see happen? You have, I think, a list of things that they're destroying the state.
Yeah, well, it's so we're now, in midsummer, and we spent 5 months this year, the first 5 months in the 2023 legislative session, with policies that were being promoted that are the most extreme. And they are running victory laps, touting these policies and this legislative session as something that's healthy for the future of Minnesota. But that could not be further from the truth. And I have actually, as I've been traveling the state in these post-legislative time, just communicating, because the media isn't doing their job.
No.
They're not communicating what happened. And I put together just a subset of a handful of things. Now I've got a bullet point list here that's a full page.
Yeah.
And this, we won't have time to go through every one of these, but this represents just a subset of what passed.
Yes.
And this stuff is egregious. And when I've been traveling Minnesota and going down this list, and I'll share a few of these, when I've been going down this list, people are just shocked. I never heard that. I never knew about that. Why didn't I know that? Well, it's because the media has been the mouthpiece of the Democrat Party, has been promoting those things that the Democrats are promoting, and has been deliberately not giving alternative perspectives that might cause people to question the agenda of the Democrat Party. That's why we need to continue to get information out. So that's what I've been doing, others have been doing, and that's why, again, I very much appreciate this opportunity. So again, just subset, can't run down this whole thing, but here are just some things. We knew that there was a $19 billion budget surplus. A budget surplus is over-taxation. So we're already overtaxed in the state. So not only did they spend that budget surplus, but they grew government by 40%.
Way too extreme.
Yeah, absolutely extreme. And Governor Walz campaigned on returning that budget surplus in the form of $1,000 checks to hardworking Minnesota taxpayers.
Yes.
Well, that didn't happen. It turns out to be $260 per filer with a cap. So for those extremely wealthy individuals that make $75,000 or more, or those families that make $150,000, those really, really rich people, they're getting nothing.
And I don't even consider that, unfortunately, that wealthy anymore. With inflation, with, the cost of living, that's...
$75,000 for an individual is by far, it's the furthest from rich.
Yes.
That is, a lot of people are hurting with the skyrocketing inflation as a result of these policies. And so that it definitely erodes any buying power that people once had. The surplus represented over-taxation wasn't enough. They had to even raise more taxes and more fees. So they added a 50-cent delivery fee on all orders over $100. So if you make purchases on Amazon that are $100 or more, you're going to have a new fee that you're going to have to pay in. They raise fees on fishing, boating, and visiting state parks.
I feel like that's a Minnesota thing, that they're fighting, literally, going against Minnesota favorite pastime right there.
If you want to enjoy our mini Great Lakes and other outdoor activities in Minnesota, you're going to be paying more.
Yes.
Unfortunately. They raise the gas tax. So they don't want, so transparency and accountability are something the Democrats try to work hard to flee from. And so one of the ways that they did that in this session was to not only raise the gas tax, but then index it to inflation for future automatic increases. So they won't need to take another vote. It'll just automatically be increased again as inflation goes out. They raised, there's 2 new sales taxes in the 7-county metro area, totaling 1%. So for those who are do business in 7-county metro area, you're going to be paying more, 1%. And that's, again, budget surplus not being enough, they had to raise taxes and fees. That we have a new state flag coming. There's a commission that'll be redesigning the state flag. We don't know what that state flag is going to look like because the commission hasn't produced anything yet. But whatever they produce, whatever their product, that becomes the new state flag. It does not need to come back to the legislature for approval. It's automatically approved.
This is just un-American at this point. I mean, we're going against our very values of being able to vote this. I mean,
That's right. Accountability,
Yes.
transparency, again, was the overriding theme that Democrats did not want. They did not want Minnesotans to know what they were doing, and they did not want to be held accountable. And the media made sure that Minnesotans did not know what Democrats were doing. They were doing the opposite of transparency so that Minnesotans could not hold the Democrats accountable. So that's why, again, we're working hard to get this out. They deleted Columbus Day and replaced it with Indigenous Peoples Day. They granted the right to vote to violent felons who have not yet completed their sentence. They are issuing driver's license now to illegal foreign nationals. So for those that are breaking the law, they're going to come here to Minnesota. They're going to be able to get a driver's license, which is in and of itself a gateway document to other things. And so the question that is asked, and one that I raised on the floor, is, well, what is the difference between citizenship and non-citizenship? Are there privileges? Are there some things that we're afforded as citizens that others are not? And they're trying to erase that line. And there should absolutely be a distinction. At a minimum, we should know who's here, right? But then when it comes to these driver's licenses, there's going to be all kinds of fraud because the protections that would normally be in place to confirm names, to confirm birthdays, to confirm a whole host of information is not there.
Everyone who just uses a driver's license, they just take it as is. And one thing is, unfortunately, we've seen traffic deaths, just people getting a hold of a rented car or stolen car in the past couple weeks in the Twin Cities alone.
That's right.
It's just even close to my area. It's just been insane. We've seen somebody hit somebody who shouldn't have been behind that wheel anyways.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. So, automatic voter registration for anybody with a driver's license. So, you heard me right. We're going to have, on one hand, be giving out driver's license to illegal foreign nationals, and then in a separate law that passed, anybody with a driver's license will automatically be registered to vote. Do you see a problem with that?
Yeah.
Minnesotans see a problem with that, but Democrats, they don't care. They do not want to, again, have this accountability. They don't want to have the protections in place that would prevent those who don't qualify or not eligible to vote to keep them from voting. And that's why this is very dangerous where we're going here.
Absolutely.
They, as one who strongly believes in the Constitution, we have the Electoral College. I know the Electoral College has been under attack these last several years, unfortunately. Our Constitution, from top to bottom, is a series of checks and balances to prevent a tyranny of the majority over the minority. And that checks and balances, we're familiar with the 3 branches, but there are more checks and balances than just that. Another one of the checks and balances is the Electoral College. And so they're trying to eliminate the Electoral College by the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. We have not been a part of that. Unfortunately, the Democrats, they hate the Constitution, they hate the Electoral College, and they entered in and joined Minnesota into this Interstate Compact, which has its goal of doing an end run around the Electoral College. Again, it's very unfortunate. They passed gun control bills. They outlawed e-poll tabs, which is going to crush local charities. They prohibited PSEO funding to faith-based schools, and they repealed the Born Alive Infant Protection Act.
I remember that. That was pushed through as quickly as possible.
It was House File 1 and Senate File 1.
Yes.
This is, many terrible things came out, but this could not be more clear in the distinction between right and wrong, good and bad, evil, and the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, for those who may not know. If an infant is born alive as the result of a botched abortion, that law required that life-giving care be administered. The baby's born alive, they can't just set it aside and let the baby die. They have to administer care because the baby's alive. Life is valuable, right? We're talking outside the womb now.
That's a basic healthcare principle. I mean,
Absolutely.
but a basic moral that we should all have.
Absolutely. But they repealed that. So now in the absence of that law, there is no duty to give life-saving care to a precious, innocent, helpless newborn who's born as a result of a botched abortion. They can just set it over, wrap it in a towel, in a blanket, put the precious newborn on the countertop, and just let it die. Now, I was a co-author, one of the co-authors of this law back in 2015 when it was passed into law. Now, this is an example of decades of pro-life law. So laws that have been passed through Democrat governors, Republican governors, Democrat legislatures, Republican legislatures, bipartisan compromise, working out these and enacting pro-life laws for decades. So this is just one of those that were erased, ripped from the books in one fell swoop. Just as an example, this law that I was co-author of, the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, was signed into law by Governor Dayton. Okay? So this extremist Democrat majority, again, in a hyper-partisan, extreme manner, just ripped all these things out.
And most Democrats even understand the tenets of pro-life. They have their abortion views, but they know that pro-life is the way to go, is what we want to strive towards. What the House File 1, Senate File 1, it was just way too extreme, pushing it forth.
Absolutely.
Everything with that and some of the other bills I know that were pushed through this last legislative session.
Yep.
I know when Walter Hudson was on the show, he talked about some of the trans bills. That it's not against people who are, identifying that way. It's just extreme, pushing kids, pushing people that way.
Well, one thing that I believe in science. Do you believe in science?
I do believe in science.
Absolutely. Well, science dictates at a genetic level there is a difference between man and woman.
Yes.
There's a distinction between male and female. And it is just to highlight the absurdity of those science deniers who don't believe that there's a genetic difference between men and women, male and female, an XX chromosome and an XY chromosome. They were on the floor, and I heard it over and over and over again that a transvestite woman is a real woman. That is denying science.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's absolutely extreme. It's absurd. And Minnesotans, in fact, I don't have it with me, but there's polls that demonstrate that they don't agree with that. The vast majority of Americans believe in science, not what the Democrats are promoting, which are science deniers.
Yes. And I know we could talk about just your list here for the whole show. You have a couple news articles. Business in Minnesota is...
Well, and you're spot on. So that was just a handful of many that we could have spent several hours on this. But what it comes down to is, right after, and yes, I do have a list, a stack here of headlines that I've been collecting and sharing on social media.
Yes.
And so after this extremist agenda, here Governor Walz is celebrating, doing the victory lap of spending $72 billion budget. Again, growing government by 40%. So Democrats look at these things and they think they are a positive. But here's the reality. No matter what spin they give on it, no matter what sheltering that the media, otherwise known as the mouthpiece of the Democrat Party, try to give, the reality is people and businesses are thinking otherwise. So here is a headline. So these billions that were spent, $72 billion. Here's a headline. This is from June of this year. The Great Grift. This is Star Tribune. How billions in COVID-19 relief aid was stolen or wasted.
I mean, government money never gets wasted. Well, we never hear about that, do we?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you this, that $72 billion budget has billions that are just being dished out like candy at a parade to this group and that group, and there are no controls in place. The lack of accountability, it's absolutely setting up for billions more to be lost. Taxpayer dollars lost to waste, fraud, and abuse. Here we have Minneapolis School District. This is June. So this is just a few weeks after the session adjourned. Minneapolis School District on the brink of insolvency.
Yep.
Okay, this is from the governor who's doing these victory laps in the Democrat Party, who think that what they just did is some kind of an accomplishment.
And just a side note, I mean, we talk about, looking at children, people of color, working on that. Education is the best source to give everyone a level playing field.
Absolutely.
And if we don't have that ability in our schools, our public schools, which just don't give that level playing field, we're failing everyone in Minnesota.
100%. In fact, Ed, there is no greater mechanism than a solid education to create that foundation, to allow every person the opportunity to pursue happiness as they see fit.
Yes.
There is no better tool. Education empowers people not just for a handful of months or a handful of years, but for the rest of their life. And when these young students are being denied a rock-solid, well-rounded education, they're being denied lifelong opportunities. And that absolutely can be laid and should be laid squarely at the feet of the Democrat Party, because they are robbing our children, the next generation, of a lifelong of opportunity.
Absolutely. We're setting them up to fail in a system where they're being told they're going to fail. Now they've experienced it firsthand. They can't get to that level playing field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it goes on. Here's a headline Star Tribune. This one is from March 10th. This was in the midst of the legislative session. Looking for an affordable starter home in the Twin Cities? Good luck. Record growth in home prices slashes the supply of 300,000. Why are prices skyrocketing? Now, I was the Republican minority lead on the Housing Committee. I'm a real estate agent, a general contractor. I have a property management business. And I'll tell you what, the single greatest reason why prices are skyrocketing in the Twin Cities is the age-old law of supply and demand.
Yes.
There is lack of supply and there's an increase in demand. And when you have demand exceeding the supply, prices go up. That is robbing people of the opportunity to become homeowners, to chase their dream, to become for most, the greatest asset that appreciates and allows for them to start building a nest egg. People can't afford that when they're in their early to mid 20s, like I was when I became a homeowner. And people are now having to do it's early 30s before people can begin to afford a starter home that exceeds $300,000. Are you kidding me? It's a joke.
It's ridiculous what prices are. I just bought my house. I got really lucky buying it in the Twin Cities, but it was a struggle. There was just not enough available to even look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what do the Democrats do? They're not dealing with the root cause. It's what I fought over and over and over again in committee and on the Senate floor, is we need to address the root cause that is causing the price to go up. Completely ignored. They don't care. They're just dishing out money here and there to the special interest groups with all kinds of strings attached. That is not dealing with the root cause of skyrocketing homeowner prices. Here's one. This one is from May 23rd. Lowertown St. Paul businesses grapple with rising crime. Crime is skyrocketing, as we started this conversation with, in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And here's a headline. This one is, one of them is actually two headlines. One from December, one from March. Minnesota's population growth sees concerning stall for a second year. Hennepin, Ramsey counties lose population again. People are recognizing this devastation that the Democrats are going to thrust upon Minnesota, and they're leaving as a result.
Yes.
Here, the Great Migration continues to Florida and Texas. Here's one. Minnetonka-based Westwood engineering firm following trend by moving its headquarters to Texas. Why are they leaving Minnesota? Here's one. 3M commits to spend $468 million expanding where? Not in Minnesota, South Dakota. Why would 3M, a Minnesota-based company, be spending nearly $500 million expanding somewhere else? I'll tell you why. Minnesota is a hostile business climate. Here's one. Allina Health eliminating 350 jobs. Why? Amid financial pressure. What's really happening there? Democrats are making it impossible to have a profit in the state of Minnesota, and businesses are going elsewhere. People are fleeing.
And we're going to see it for the secondary, tertiary jobs that will follow that job loss. I know we could talk about everything for another 30 to 40, maybe a couple hours here. We talked about doom and gloom, Senator Lucero. What can viewers do to start to work against this, start to bring back a better Minnesota?
Well, Minnesota used to be a great state.
Yes.
But as is the case, it's an age-old adage, all that is required for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. And if we want to stop evil from advancing in the state of Minnesota, stop evil in terms of usurping parental control, stop evil by having big government confiscate the wealth of people that work hard their entire lives in the form of taxing Social Security. If we want to stop these terrible policies, good people need to get involved. And that's what needs to happen. So those that have been sitting on the sideline for too long need to get involved. Our government, our Constitution requires citizen participation.
And it's not just the federal government or the state government, but viewers can get involved with their local government, correct?
Absolutely. Well, we have townships, we have city councils, we have school boards, we have county commissioners. There are many other races in addition to the legislature that are very, very important. In fact, I would argue that the day-to-day lives are greatly impacted more by school board decisions, by city council decisions, than they are at the federal government or the state government. And that's where people need to get involved.
I'm with you on that. I mean, if we look at the Hennepin County, where our county prosecutors, where our judges are making decisions, they're the ones elected at that local or that level.
Yes.
And we can start to even change the face of crime in the Twin Cities.
That's right. By actually electing prosecutors, district attorneys, DAs, that are going to hold criminals accountable instead of allowing this revolving door that our professional law enforcement officers risk their lives to pick people up, get them off the street, to have county prosecutors simply just ignore them, not prosecute them, to have their revolving door and put them right back out on the street. Yeah. It's not good for law-abiding Minnesotans.
No, it's going to create that, continual leaving of the state, of the metro county
That's
area.
Right.
We're going to see that.
That's right.
How can viewers get a hold of you?
Well, the best, you can go to my website, www.ericlucero.com, or you could email me at sen.eric.lucero@senate.mn, or you could look me up on Facebook. I have, I'm putting out information on a regular basis on Facebook.
Yes, you
or
are.
on Twitter.
I love following you on Twitter. I always, it's how I get my headlines sometimes. What's actually happening in the state? Following you and some of our great liberty representatives and senators, they're the ones who are giving us the news we need.
We're doing the best we can to get information out because corporate media, legacy media, is simply not doing their job.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for bringing all of this to our attention, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Republican Roundtable, however you watch us, whether it's on social media or on your local TV. We thank you again for joining us, and remember to get involved in your local government. Be that voice for liberty and for American values. Thank you once again.